Getting off the couch to do a 5K or even a triathlon today on the Do Hard Things Today podcast. Episode 93 of the podcast, we have everyone's favorite triathlon and running coach, Katie Malone, in the studio with us. How you doing, Coach?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
All right. Today we are talking about getting off the couch. It may not be the literal couch, but we had a lot of interest in people talking about how do I get off the couch to maybe attempt my first 5K or even dip my toes into the triathlon waters. So we wanted to have you in to just talk about and hopefully alleviate some fears and concerns that people have about starting this today. So just real quickly, give us your quick Cliff Notes version of your story of how you got involved in triathlon and why you're so passionate about helping people, especially, and I would venture to say probably especially getting people started into the endurance community.
Okay. Well, so my story, I feel like I tell my story a lot, but let me give you the Cliff Notes version. I watched the Hawaii Ironman on TV when I was 8 years old. I was very inspired. I really wanted to do that. It used to be on the Wide World of Sports on Sunday afternoons in the fall, and I just thought it was awesome. My parents at the time, they were both cyclists. Well, my mother was a cyclist, and my father would torture himself trying to keep up with my mother on the weekends. So at some point, someone gave me a road bike. I was probably about 10 years old. The road bike was way too big. But I started going on pancake rides with my parents on Sundays. Where we lived, the firehouses would always have like a pancake breakfast to benefit, I guess, the firehouse where they were. And so we'd ride to the firehouse, eat a pancake breakfast, and ride home. It was usually about 20 miles. So as a 10-year-old, I thought, okay, I am well on my way to doing my Ironman. I can ride 20 miles and eat a pancake breakfast. After that, my mom started running. We moved to North Carolina when I was 12 and I ran a mile. Yep. I ran a mile, Ironman, here I come. So that was my thought process. I mean, I was 12. I was working on my goals. I could ride a bike and I could run a mile. Ironman is 112 miles on the bike and 26 miles running, but I started. And I think that's kind of the point, is that you have to start somewhere. My swimming was pretty dismal, but I challenged myself to swim around Lake Lanier, a place now where I regularly train and train other athletes. I did swim around the entire lake, breaststroke, side stroke, backstroke, not drowning stroke. There was not a lot of freestyle involved because, well, let's face it, I didn't know how to do freestyle. But it didn't matter. I realized I could make it around the lake and not drown. So I was definitely ready for my triathlon challenge. I just didn't let it deter me that I didn't know what I was doing. At 14, I did my first, it was not a sprint. It was more somewhere between a sprint and Olympic, which these days is called a Sprinter National. The distance was probably about half a mile swimming. It was 20 miles up and down hills riding, and then it was a 10K trail run. That was my first triathlon. I was last out of the water, made up some time on the bike, and survived the run. And that kind of got me hooked. You know, I was definitely feeling like I was well on my ways to reaching my goals at that point. That same year, I did a little bike ride that we have in Spartanburg, South Carolina. It's called the Assault on Mount Mitchell. My bike had all the wrong gears. I was off the bike a lot on the trip up the mountain. My dad was following me in a good old station wagon, and he kept telling me to get in the car because this was ridiculous. I refused. I did finish.
This is 112 miles, I believe. Is that right? 112 with 10,000 feet of elevation, roughly.
Yeah, that's the ride I chose to do. So, you know, my dad was like, wow, that bike does not have the right gearing. Just get off the bike, get in the car. I didn't. I did finish the ride, and you know, I really felt like I was on my way to doing the Ironman at that point. I was 14. Very proud of the t-shirt that I got when I finished the assault on Mount Mitchell. I wore it to school the next day. No one knew what it was, and no one was impressed. So that kind of began my journey. I realized that a lot of people have no clue what triathlon is or what it was that I wanted to do, but it still was my dream. Life kind of happened after that, and I did not get back to actually do the Hawaii Ironman World Championships until I was 28. So I had, basically 20 years between the time I had that dream and the time I completed it. So my point with that is, like, if there's something you really want to do, it never has to go away, and it might take a long time to get there, but you can just follow all those little steps, like just do the little things to put yourself in the right direction to get there.
Okay, you had me at not drown, stroke in the water, because that's what I'm familiar with. That's what I do. You lost me at the assault on Mount Mitchell because, being honest, of the three of us on the panel today, I am much closer to the couch than either one of y'all are. So somebody like me, somebody who is truly an abject beginner, what have you learned? What do I need to do? What does somebody like me need to do to tackle a 5K or an Ironman or anything in between? I'm sure there's a wealth of difference there, but what are the basics?
So, great question. And thankfully, over the years, I've learned a lot about coaching beginners and coaching people who know nothing about any of the sports. And I think the first thing that I typically am going to work with people on is doing a walk-run method to getting into running, because most people aren't going to jump off the sofa and be able to even run a 5K. So we might start with walking a minute, running a minute. And you might do that for 20 minutes for a couple of weeks just to start getting your body used to moving. Then with the bike, a lot of people like to start on a trainer or on something that they have at the gym, just a simple stationary bike at the gym, just to practice that movement. Also, a lot of people who are going to do a triathlon don't necessarily have a bike to start with. So that's a good place just to kind of start. And then the swimming. The swimming is the most challenging part of triathlon for most people because access to pools can be limited, and also finding somebody to actually teach you to swim. The one thing that I think helps more than anything for beginners is going and go to the Y, take some swim lessons. Go to a triathlon coach. If they will give swim lessons, take those. I know for the Greenville Triathlon Club, every year I do a beginner swimming program. I will have people there who do not know how to swim. I will have people there who don't even know how to tread water, and they will learn to swim throughout the 8 to 12 week program.
You covered a couple. I was going to pepper in some of these questions that we got from we've got a Facebook group, and we took questions, and we had quite a few. We're not going to be able to get to all of them because we had a ton of them emailed in. But one of the questions was, how do you feel about the run walk method as a long-term strategy? And then another one that you hit on, this is what this person came in from, his name is Bobby. He says, I can't swim. What do I need to do to be able to finally not let swimming be my weakness? And I think those two things, when people start talking about, and the run walk one was specifically for a 5K. We've got a couch. This person says they're a part of the Couch to 5K program that just started here locally with the Hub City group. And run walk is a legitimate thing to get going. Explain what that is. I know you just hit it for a second there, but really, what is the run walk method? Can that be something that's a long-term strategy? And then that second piece, the I can't swim. I think from a triathlon perspective, that is the biggest barrier for people. So maybe what are two things you would say about the run walk method, and what are two things you'd say about, okay, take these steps to be able to obviously not be able to just go to the pool and jump in and know how to swim. What do they need to do to get started in those two things?
So for run walk, it is something that And it is just what it says. It is where you run a little bit and then you walk a little bit. And you do that over and over again until you complete your distance. I have used that very successfully in Ironman races. I've had athletes use that in an Ironman race. You can use it as a 5K. You can use it for rehab. Running and then walking to let yourself recover. It is probably the best thing I know to do for almost everyone. Obviously, if you're going to be a competitive 5Ker, you don't want to be walking in there. But for most people, running and walking, and you can change the intervals. You can run for 5 minutes and walk for 1 minute. Personally, in Ironman, I like to run as long as I can and then take maybe 30 steps walking just to recover a little bit, keep my good form, and then start running again. So there are lots of different ways you can mix it up and make it right for you, but it is something that you can use, from just beginning, even in a mile, all the way up to Ironman.
So let's talk couch to 5Kers first. And this is a group that, and you're in this group, you would be saying that you've been on the couch, or you're just getting started, or for whatever reason you are just starting now. We've got a lot of questions from them, but a lot of them can generalize into a couple of statements. And this was the biggest one. And This came from our Hub City group that just started. In fact, they started this week. And I summarized a couple of them into this one person's statement. She says, I literally feel like I'm going to die when I run for 30 seconds. Will this really get easier? And then in all caps, frustrated. So what do you say to that person? And I'd guess they're probably going out and, hey, we're going to train we're going to train couch to 5K, and they go out and they try to start running, and they get 30 seconds in. I remember that feeling of literally feeling like you're going to die. What do you say to that person?
Well, there are a couple things. Like, that person might never have done a lot of movement before and might need to start with more walking and then move into the run walk. Like, they might need to start with walking easy and then walking faster. Walking faster, really using your arms, really driving, really trying to move as fast as you can with a walk, and then do that for a few weeks and then move into the run walk for 30 seconds run, maybe a minute walk. So the recovery is double what the actual interval of running is. Also, you can jog as slow as you want to. You don't have to feel like you're going to die when you're running. And if you do, that's where you might need more walking first, just to condition yourself. We have to be respectful of our bodies when we're starting any training program or doing anything new. You would never expect your child to go out and master something the first time or in the first week. But yet, as adults, we expect ourselves to go out and be perfect at it right away. And that is never the case. So I always tell people that you need to give yourself some grace and be kind to yourself and talk to yourself the way you would a small child.
Well, and there's two things that we're working whenever you start a program like this. You've got physiologically, you have your physical body, your knees, your feet, your muscles that you have not been using, all of these things that will generally you will build them up to be able to take on more and more mileage, and you will get used to that. Your body will get used to that. But the other part, and usually when people say, I feel like I'm dying, it's that cardiovascular system, and your heart rate is going through the roof. And your heart rate's going through the roof because you're running faster than you should be running. And again, like you said, I think it's important for people not to, especially if you're coming off the couch, don't make comparisons. Don't say, well, I see people doing 5Ks in 25 minutes. I go to a track meet and I watch the high schoolers run, 17, 18-minute 5Ks. It's taken me 40 minutes or 45 minutes to walk a 5K. don't get into comparisons. Get into the like, am I moving forward? Am I making progress? And if you make that progress slowly and responsibly, your body will adapt, and then you'll be able to go faster. Is that fair to say?
I think that that's really an important point. And the other thing, just to add to that, is it's your journey. It's your personal journey. It's not someone else's. And if it's going to take you a little bit longer, that's okay. I mean, like I pointed out with my dream with the Ironman, it took me 20 years. So a lot of times things don't happen in the timeline that we have in our head.
I can relate to that. Another question, and on this, I wanted to cover the Couch to 5K first. And there were several that came in that were similar to this one. And generally, I think when people are doing Couch to 5K, a lot of times this is related. And so I wanted to cover this and get your thoughts on it. And I'm going to read one of these this is again from one of our Hub City Couch to 5K group that just started. It says, I need to lose about 30 pounds. Can this happen at the same time I am trying to start with a Couch to 5K program?
Ooh, yes. But I think a lot of times when people want to lose weight, they don't know how to go about it in a healthy manner. And typically, unfortunately, what people like to do is cut all the carbs out, which is really a bad thing to do, especially when you're training, because it leaves you feeling really depleted and really terrible. I am not a dietitian, but I can tell you that just kind of eating smaller portions, eating cleaner will help. And when I say cleaner, just taking out processed foods, eating more vegetables, always having a little protein with your carbohydrate will help you process it better. There are a lot of things you can do to change your eating without starving yourself.
Yeah, and that is important, because sometimes people take these extremes and they come out as like, I'm going to start Couch to 5K program. Same time, I'm going to cut my calories from 4,000 a day to 1,500 a day, or whatever it is. They'll make these drastic cuts, and then they feel bad, and these things compound on each other. And then next thing you know, they stop 2 weeks later, and
they're hungry.
Yeah, they're hungry. They're hangry.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I think also when you're trying to lose weight, or really if you're an athlete of any kind, you need more protein. And I've had a lot of my athletes using an app lately to track how much protein they're getting. And I've been shocked at how low mine personally was. I thought I did a good job with my nutrition. And what the app showed me is that I haven't been. I don't get enough protein in my diet. So you have to be really deliberate about your protein and about tracking it, because otherwise you don't know.
Generally, what's a good rule of thumb for protein intake?
Well, I think it's 2.2. Well, it depends. Let's say for athletes, 1 gram per pound of body weight, but that's a lot of protein. That's a lot of protein. I mean, I am happy if people can get in 120 to 150 grams of protein a day, which is a lot.
Along those lines, I read an article, I think it was yesterday, about an offensive lineman for the Eagles who's about to play in the Super Bowl. Takes in 5,500 calories a day. And he was talking about his protein level. I don't want to misquote it because I don't remember it exactly. But he said to fuel athletic progress, it's a full-time job for him. Eating is part of his job. Do athletes have to look at it that way? If you want to perform at the peak level, do they have to look at it that way sometimes? So
again, if you're eating 5,500 calories, so we have to keep in mind how much activity he's doing per day.
He's the 1% of the 1%,
right,
basically.
Right. But for people who are doing Ironman, long distance racing, let's say you're training, 20 to 25 hours a week. That's not normal, but that's, for a high level triathlete, yeah, then you might be eating 4,000 to 5,000 calories a day. But you have to have the activity to support that kind of nutritional intake. For most people, your calorie intake should be half of that, maybe.
Well, and you said the word that you said that scares people a lot of times because they think it's something that's not, is clean. And I think what I have found, and as I have aged, I will be 50 in May, but as I have gotten older, when I eat unclean, when I eat processed things the day before, the next day, I feel horrible. I feel like used to when I was 19 and had a hangover, and my body aches. My body, I feel like I'm inflamed. My joints ache whenever my diet is unclean. Whenever I'm taking in processed foods, just refined carb, all those kind of things. And when I eat clean, generally, I am feeling, it makes me feel better, and I'm able to do it. And I think that's important for people that are, it's not necessarily about just cut calories. If you think about it in terms of, okay, not what all am I going to cut out, but what am I going to add to? What am I going to focus on? And you have those good, clean sources of protein, those good, clean, vegetables and fruits, and then those good carbohydrates that you can take in. I love sweet potatoes. That's my favorite, and you can do those. The kids generally like those, but I think getting those good, clean sources in is the important thing. Instead of that old paradigm of you want to lose weight, you just cut out calories. Just cut out calories.
Well, I think the eating clean, kind of like you shop around the outside of the supermarket, the outside aisle. You never go on the aisles that are in the middle. And then the other thing is eating all day long, like smaller meals, so that because depending on your age, your metabolism tends to slow down. So if you eat more frequently and smaller meals, or like I like to eat a little bit of leftovers. Sometimes I eat lunch at like 10:30, 11, and then I'm going to have another snack in the mid-afternoon. Like I'm constantly eating, but I try to eat things that are good for me.
First, just an editorial note. Kevin said 19 and hungover. I'm sure he meant 21.
I thank you for mentioning that. I was laughing at that.
I mean, he's almost 50 and gets confused about the old time. So I'm sure he meant almost 20. He meant 21. Definitely.
That's exactly what I meant.
All of these, everything, the shopping around the outside of the store, the training, the approach to training, the nutrition, all of that, these require some pretty serious mental changes too. And I know that's where you come in, but how do you prepare people for success? How do you inform people on what good choices are and how to make them?
I think that the best way to go about making changes is to do very small things, like do one thing every week, just one thing. Focus on one thing. Because if you try to do everything at once, it's so overwhelming, it's exhausting, and you're not going to set yourself up for success. This week and next week, maybe say, I'm just going to focus on exercising 4 times a week. And then if I can do that for 2 weeks, the next week, start to add in the clean eating and just changing your eating a little bit. Maybe you don't eat clean every meal, but eat clean every time you make dinner, or every time you cook for yourself. And it's the small things that really add up. And also it's the willingness to make those changes, because change is always scary. No matter what kind of change it is, we all tend to resist. Even though we know it's good for us, it's hard to actually implement it.
So moving away from the couch to 5K. So I think we've covered everything. If you're just trying to get off the couch and start with walk, run, and start with just walking. Just get out and start moving. Do whatever you need to do there. Make some of these small changes to be able to, to see a little bit, because you'll start to see these things. If you've got the activity, you're eating cleaner, and doing these things, you're gonna start making progress. You're gonna start seeing the scale move a little bit, which is right, wrong, or indifferent is very important for people. And as that happens, these other things are going to happen too. You're going to start. I can actually jog a little bit now, and now I can run a little bit. So for those people that have looked and said, okay, I am interested in not only this, but possibly jumping into this triathlon thing that I see people talking about. We will have people in our Facebook groups that are runners or they have come from that background, and then they see these other people that are talking about triathlon. Originally, they will usually think, well, those people are crazy. I'm not doing that. There's no way I'm doing that. And then through peer pressure or just through, I'd like to do something else, they decide this year I'm going to do a triathlon. And so we're not talking about Ironman. We're not talking about these longer distance. We're talking about somebody that is, there is a sprint triathlon at my local YMCA that's coming up, and it's in 3 months, and I'd like to try to do that. What do those people need to do? What do they need to know? And let's not overcomplicate it. What do they need to be able to jump in and try a sprint triathlon?
Okay, so just before we get any further, sprint triathlon, it can be anywhere from a 200-meter swim to a 400-meter swim. Usually, a lot of them are in a pool just to get you started. You know, you want to be somewhere that you're comfortable. So a lot of them are in pools. There are a few that are in a lake. To start with, if you're not super comfortable swimming, I do recommend starting in a pool. The bike is going to be anywhere from usually 10 to 16 miles, and the run is going to be, 2 to 3 miles normally for a sprint. And I will say that we do have a lot of really nice sprints in the South Carolina Triathlon Series. But the first thing that you do have to do is get comfortable swimming, learn how to swim. And I think a lot of these questions that we're getting are coming from the Hub City runners.
They are.
So what I want to do is the first 3 people who email me that they don't know how to swim and they want to learn how to swim, I will teach you to swim.
I'm emailing her right now.
You're the world's greatest swimmer.
I'm the world's greatest swimmer.
So I'm putting that out there.
How do they email you?
Yep, they have to email me.
What's your email?
Katie, Katie @malonecoaching.com. So you email me and I will teach you to swim.
I had to pay her for that.
Okay. So
I wasn't expecting that. That's very generous of you.
Well,
I mean, literally, it is. Because,
thank you.
Because this is the thing that terrifies people. Is the swimming.
I believe in getting more people into the sport. I do everything I can, not just through my coaching, but it's something that I have the ability to help teach people. And if I can take 3 people from the upstate and get them swimming so that they can at least participate in their first triathlon, that would make me feel good. So I'm definitely willing to do that. So now that we got that out of the way, that's only 3 people, but we will be doing some clinics.
Let me add something to that.
Yes.
Because there are people that are hearing that and are like, gosh, I'm going to email her. And then they start to email it and they think, but I am going to look like a complete idiot when I hit the water. And they're thinking that because they don't know they know how to swim as a kid. They can get around the pool at the beach or whatever.
No, we're talking beginners.
Yeah,
we're talking.
No. What I mean by that is, hear me what I'm saying. They can go to the beach and swim in a pool from one side to the other, breaststroking, doing whatever. They have no idea how to freestyle. They're complete beginners. And they're thinking, I'm going to come in and I am going to look like a fool and I'm embarrassed and I don't want to. I want to alleviate you of that Coach Katie will work with you. In fact, Jed, there is a video somewhere of me swimming underwater that she's holding for blackmail purposes for later in my life. But
I know where it is.
She was very... Yeah, and I'll never forget the very first time that we got together and we swam. that I went across the pool one time, and when I got out, I looked up and she's like, I know what your problem is. And she wouldn't tell me what her problem was at that time, but she said, I know what your problem is.
I wanted to video him first.
Yeah. And so she videoed me, and then she worked through some things with me, and that's how I am the world's greatest swimmer. But I would just encourage you, take her up on this. This is huge. 3 people. So as soon as you hear this, you better start emailing. So the first 3 are going to get in on that.
Thank you, Kevin, for that. But really, no matter where you are with your swimming or your fear of the water, I will help you. I can help you. So please email. That at least helps 3 people. But I will be doing some clinics as well this year at the lake, doing some open water swimming. I'm going to open that back up to anyone who wants to join us. We'll be swimming every other Monday night at Lake Lanier up in Landrum, so that people kind of get comfortable doing open water swimming.
So the second piece of this, obviously running, it's not easy, but you can walk out your door and lace up shoes, and you can be somewhere where you can be running. The other piece of that is going to be biking. And for most people, for people who have been doing triathlon, you take that for granted because you usually have 2 or 3 bikes sitting around that you have used. What does someone that has not been on a bike or really ridden a bike since they were kids, what does that look like? How do they access bikes without spending exorbitant amount of money? Talk about that aspect of triathlon.
Great question. So for your first triathlon, you can do it on any bike that you have around your house. It doesn't have to be anything special. Yes, doing it on a road bike would be easier on you, but you don't have to. That's not a prerequisite. You can ride whatever you've got. At the same time, our community of triathletes and cyclists around here, they're pretty amazing. I recently put out a post on Facebook that I needed an extra small women's bike for a young girl who's starting in triathlon. I got 28 people who either emailed me, messaged me, or posted on Facebook that they had bikes. Those are used bikes that are either going to be really cheap or they were willing to give to her. I think that goes to show what our community is capable of. So never be afraid to ask. Like, ask your neighbor, ask me. I have a lot of reach, and I'm able to find bikes for people that are inexpensive, that are great first bikes. And I'm also willing to help people do that. If somebody really wants to do a triathlon and you don't have a bike, even if I don't coach you, chances are I might be able to help you find the bike that would be right for you.
Yeah, don't be intimidated. And this can be a very intimidating thing, thinking about doing a triathlon, but the people are generally, you do have some outliers, but the people generally are very, very welcoming, very, very encouraging, and they want to see this community grow. And you said that about the bikes. That's exactly what I was going to say, is that every person listening to this knows somebody that would probably give them a bike.
Loan them a bike.
Or loan them a bike because it's sitting in their garage not being used, and they would love to see you be able to do that. So give us maybe an example, and you don't have to use names or anything if you don't
Hold
feel
on. We have to go backwards.
We're going backwards. All right, let's go backwards.
Before we go forward. Because with the bike, so we get you a bike, then safe places to ride. If you're in the Spartanburg area, we have a place called Cowpens Battlefield. It is closed to traffic. It's a 2.5 mile, 3 mile loop that you can do safely without cars. That is huge for learning to ride your bike. It's safe. Your kids can go out there. You can go out there. I really recommend going somewhere like that. Duncan Park is open to traffic, but also it's a loop. I think it's 2.5 miles. But these are places where you can ride. The Swamp Rabbit Trail in Greenville is not ideal for riding your bike. I believe there's the Thermal View Trail out in Rutherfordton that is pretty nice for riding. So there are places where you can ride that are safe. And that's where I would recommend starting.
That's something that a lot of folks locally don't think about. It's called the Thermal Belt Rail Trail up there.
Thank you.
I was up there. I worked up there when they opened it. Is the only way I know. There are several trails that are offshoots of that. Rutherford County is probably an hour from where we're sitting in Moore right now, and there are a wealth of places up there to bike safely. There are trails. There's one in Spindale. There's one in Forest City. There's one in Ruffton. There's one that runs the whole length of it. It's a great place fairly locally that people don't think of. And the Thermal Belt Trail, if you're already at Cowpens Battlefield, you're 25 minutes away. So it's really not too far. People think, oh, it's all the way in North Carolina. I don't want to go up there. But it's really right around the corner.
Thank you. So, I think one of the barriers, though, to doing triathlon and for beginners, it's getting the bike and it's where to ride. So hopefully we just kind of solved two of those. And now I'm going to let Kevin carry on with his next question.
Yeah. The next question was to encourage those that are wanting to start. And maybe if you have an example of someone that that maybe started not so long ago, coming off the couch and has progressed into triathlon and maybe not looking for the huge success podium stories, but just someone that has made that transition into this lifestyle and has really, it's made some positive changes in their life with that.
So what I tend to see a lot, I see runners who, either they were injured or they just can't run as much anymore. And so they're like, I need to do something else. This sounds like fun. Teach me how to swim, teach me how to ride my bike. And I get a lot of those people in my coaching business. They come and they start taking swim lessons. They might only take swim lessons, learn to swim, and then they're like, okay, I'm ready to learn to ride my bike. And when I'm teaching somebody to learn to ride a bike, typically I actually ride with you. I teach you how to shift, teach you how to get on and off safely. If you're going to be using the clipless pedals, which is usually a little bit of a step up, I teach you how to clip in and out safely. It's all about being safe and being able to enjoy the process.
Yeah, that's with the new people. What we wanted to do with this podcast was to alleviate fears and alleviate concerns, and hopefully encourage people to be able to take these steps. The Couch to 5K, we covered that, and now even moving into the triathlon, I hope listeners, you're hearing that this is something that's very doable. That is we've got a lot of, if you're local listening, there are a lot of local smaller sprint triathlons that you could get into. And I'll just say this: when you show up to those, it's very welcoming. Everything is marked off. You're not going to show up and be like, well, I'm brand new. I don't know what to do. But you will enjoy this community, and it's very easy to get into. You can find a bike. We've covered that. It's relatively easy to find a bike that you can get that you're not going to spend a lot of dollars on, and can probably even get free or loaned. The swim lessons, Coach Katie just offered 3 people. She's going to teach you how to swim, and she can do it. She taught me how to swim, and now, like Jed always says, I don't know why you bring it up all the time, the world's greatest swimmer over here, but she taught me how to swim. And if she can teach me how to swim, she can teach anybody how to swim. So that's 3 people, and then we will put some things out throughout this season to be able to help you with your swimming. She offers up some at her up at the lake that she's around, some open water swimming. So there's a lot of opportunities for that. So hopefully this encourages some of you to take that next step and be a part of it. Anything else that you would add for those people that are literally, again, these are brand new beginners, anything else you'd leave them with to encourage them to maybe take that next step?
On the bike, you can have flat pedals. Like, you don't need to clip in. I did mention teaching people how to clip in, but you do not have to have that for your first triathlon. I do think when you're riding on a bike with flat pedals, if you have trail shoes or shoes that are a little bit more solid on the bottom, your feet will be more comfortable riding versus a pair of running shoes that's more flexible. And then the other thing is, we are here as resources. I know if they email you, Kevin, or if they email me, I am happy to help people. Like, even if I'm not coaching them. We also have the Greenville Triathlon Club that puts on a lot of different things to help beginners and just encourage participation in the sport. So I would recommend, it's called the Greenville Triathlon and Multi-Sport Club. It's on Facebook.
And I'm always shocked at where people are listening from. We can see that data. People are listening literally from all over the world, but a lot of people all over the country. How can they get connected with? What's the best way to find these local places that are going to be as welcoming as what we have here? Where do they find these? What's the best way to look and find these things?
I think usually, if you find a local coach, the coach would typically know. Some coaches are very open to helping people. Other coaches want to only coach people who are more elite. So it really depends, but a coach is always a great resource for what's available in the area because typically they're going to know because it's their business to know.
Yeah. And, go to Google triathlon coach near me. And you can probably find those resources. USA
Triathlon has a list of triathlon coaches. You can search by area, and those are coaches who are certified by USA Triathlon, which is always kind of a good thing because that means they're putting time and effort into their coaching certification. And so that's a good place to start. USA Triathlon has a ton of resources on their website. That's something that I use a lot. And also Training Peaks has a lot of good resources that are free.
Okay. Before we close, how do they get in touch with you? And again, she's going to give you an email address. The first 3 that reach out to her, she's going to teach how to swim. So don't wait and don't hesitate. If this is something you're interested in, all I would ask is this. If you email her and ask her for this, I want you to be committed to seeing it through. That's the only thing I'll ask of you is if she's going to give of her time freely to teach you how to swim, is that you would commit to doing whatever it takes to follow her advice, meet with her when she meets with you, and she will teach you how to swim. So give them how can they find out more information about your coaching services, and then what's the way they can reach out to you about the swimming?
I think if somebody comes to learn to swim, maybe they should come on the podcast afterwards and talk about it.
2 things we're going to ask of you is that you commit to doing this and that you would see this through. And then we're going to have a follow-up, maybe in 90 days, and you're going to tell your success story to encourage other people to take that step as well.
There we go. Okay. So now you can reach me at Katie, it's Katie, at Malone Coaching. It's Malone coaching.com. And my website is also malonecoaching.com.
All right, sweet. So we have gotten you off the couch, whether you're trying to do a 5K or whether you are going to dip your toes into the triathlon world. But no matter what that is, no matter what it is that your goals are or where you are in this fitness journey, just remember this. If you'll do the hard things today, tomorrow will take care of itself.